All right, Larry Krueger here from Arizona, courtesy of the New York Style Italian Sausage Company, sending us here with our Pig in a Pickle Krug Show video. We're going to talk a little 49ers. Now, one of the reports coming out today that was really interesting is that according to Jonathan Jones, the 49ers were in attendance to watch OBJ's private workout in Arizona this afternoon. Now, who's OBJ? Odell Beckham Jr. is who we're talking about. And I guess there were 11 other teams on hand, and they all got a glimpse at the former superstar wide receiver. Free agency begins officially on Monday. So, OBJ wanted to get this workout out. He wants to show that, he's a player and, kind of put himself on the map as far as other teams are concerned. Now, the Niners at wide receiver are pretty loaded. They signed Jennings to a one-year tender a week ago. They drafted Danny Gray at SMU in last year's draft, and he barely got on the field. And if that's all they had, that'd be one thing. But they have Deebo Samuel, who's a star in his own right. They have Brandon Ayuk, who's a former first-round pick. They have an outstanding receiving tight end in George Kittle. They've got a receiving running back in Christian McCaffrey, a guy that you throw the ball out of the backfield to. So there's not a lot of targets to go around for OBJ. OBJ has great ball skills. No question about it. Phenomenal hands, runs good routes. He knows how to play wide receiver. And I really like him in the red zone, especially if you have if the 49ers are going to go with Trey Lance, OBJ becomes even that much more valuable. Why? Because OBJ runs good routes and he has terrific hands. I mean, kind of like a young Chris Carter. He's got elite hands. And with somebody like Trey who throws high speed wobbles and he doesn't throw the most catchable football. If you're going to go with Trey Lance, man, OBJ seems like it would make a lot of sense. But I'm just looking at this and I could see why people like OBJ. He's very reliable in certain ways. I mean, he's a great red zone guy. He's a quarterback's best friend. I mean, this guy's got elite ball skills. All right, that's why you like OBJ, but I don't think this is a fit. I really don't. I mean, look at this guy's career. He came into the NFL in 2014. He played 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, and 2018 with the New York Giants. In New York, he played basically all the games. 12 games the first year, 15 in year 2, 16 in year 3. He had 1 year where he was kept to 4 games because of injury, but he bounced back in 2018. He played 12 games. So he was playing a lot in New York. And then, he went over 1,000 yards receiving in 4 of those 5 seasons that he spent in New York. And if you look at his touchdown totals, look what he did when he came into the league. 12 touchdowns as a rookie, 13 touchdowns in year 2, 10 touchdowns in year 3. Double-digit touchdowns 3 years in a row. Now let's take a look at what he's done recently. And it just hasn't been the same. I mean, he played 16 games for Cleveland in 2019, caught 74 balls off 124 targets for over 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns. So, decent first year in Cleveland. I guess 4 touchdowns, 6 and 4. But then year 2, which was 2020 with the Browns, 7 games played. 2021, 6 games played. 2021 with the Rams, he played, I guess, 8 more games. So I guess in total, he played 14 games. But he's had injuries, and he's been hurt, and he's missed some time. And he never seems like he's a bargain. He always seems like you're going to pay him, top shelf as far as the pay scale is concerned. So you're getting a player that has been injured a lot, still has a big ego, still has really high expectations for himself as far as, how many balls he wants to see. And I just don't think that he's a good fit for the 49ers. I love OBJ's ball skills. And if you're going with Trey Lance, I can understand wanting to have a receiver with elite ball skills. But then look, who are you sitting down? Who's not playing so OBJ can play? It's not going to be Deebo. It's not going to be Ayuk. So it's probably going to be Jennings. So, I mean, look at this 49er team. They have a needed offensive tackle. They got a needed tight end. They got a need, probably for another dynamic playmaker at running back. They have a couple needs on the offensive line. They've got a need at defensive tackle. They may have a need at one of the linebacker spots if Aziz Al-Shair leaves in free agency. They probably need 2 or 3 players in the secondary. They need a starting corner. They need a backup corner. They need maybe a starting nickel, maybe a starting free safety. And they have a number of needs. So why would you go and spend money when it's really just a nominal upgrade from Jennings to OBJ? And that's how I see it. Jennings, a 7th-round pick in the 2020 draft. He's a culture player for the Niners. He's very popular. He has great ball skills. He will catch a tough, high-speed wobble pass from Trey Lance, and he'll catch it in a group. He'll catch it in a crowd, as they say, and hold on. He doesn't turn it over. He blocks downfield, and he's so much cheaper than what OBJ plans to be. So, to me, I just don't think there's a need there. I mean, how many receivers do you typically carry on a roster? 5, 6? All right. If Debo's your 1, Ayuk's your 2, Jennings is your 3, Danny Gray was a 3rd-round draft choice, and he runs sub 4.3. That alone, in my book, makes him number 4. Ray McLeod is a really good special team return guy, so he's your 5th receiver. Last year, as an undrafted free agent, they signed Tay Martin out of Oak State. Tay Martin has tremendous ball skills. He doesn't run that fast, but man, he will catch it in a crowd, take a big lick, and hold on. So I just don't see the need. I don't see the need for OBJ. I think they're pretty loaded at wide receiver. If the 49ers went this entire offseason and did not add any wide receivers at all, I still think they go to camp with wide receiver being largely settled. On a deep football team, you're probably going to keep 5, maybe 6. Well, Ayuk, Debo, Jennings, Danny Gray, Ray McLeod. Those are your 5 right there. And if you're going to keep a 6th, I'd rather go with Tay Martin off the practice squad, who's got tremendous ball skills in his own right and isn't going to cost you a fraction of what OBJ is going to cost you. Then you also have the game day, trying to bring the team along. You don't want the team to fracture. You want the team to stay together. You want these guys to work together. And I just don't think that, you already have a lot of mouths to feed on offense. You got a lot of skill position guys. I mean, if I'm George Kittle, I'd say, hey, why don't I get the ball more? If I'm Brandon Ayuk, why don't I get the ball more? If I'm Debo, why don't I get the ball more? If I'm Christian McCaffrey, why aren't you featuring me every week? If I'm Elijah Mitchell, I'm thinking, hey, you know what? I'd like a few more touches. And I'm sure Ty Davis-Price feels the same way. And I guarantee you that Jordan Mason feels the same way. You got an all-pro fullback. You got a deep group of running backs. You got a Pro Bowl caliber tight end. And you've got, a deep wide receiver core that's pretty established. And I don't see there being an incredible need for this player, nor do I see there being a lot of reps to give OBJ. Now, if you want to, grade this out in a vacuum and just say, all right, you're going to be in the playoffs, and who do you want on a big 3rd down in the playoffs, catching passes from Brock Purdy or Trey Lance? Do you want it to be, Jennings, or do you want it to be OBJ? Well, when you look at it that way, it's easy to say, well, I'd rather it be OBJ. But then when you really factor in that, OBJ is going to cost you a lot. OBJ is got a big ego. I don't want to say he's a diva, but he's got a big ego. He's got a really high opinion of himself. So what happens in a game where Debo catches a dozen balls and Ayuk is a factor in the red zone and Kittle has a decent day and you run the ball a lot? How are you getting any traction at all or any reps at all for Odell Beckham Jr.? I don't see it. So I think if the Niners went with OBJ, well, I think it would make Trey a better a little bit more dependable quarterback because, OBJ catches everything. Everything in his neighborhood he's going to catch. He's got a huge catch radius, and he's going to make a lot of quarterbacks look good. There's no question. But, you know, how much is he going to play? And who's he playing over? And is he so much better than Juwan Jennings that you want to upset their chemistry, go with somebody who may have a huge ego and who has an expectation that they're going to play a ton when you can go with Juwan Jennings, who was a 7th round pick, who runs terrific routes, has elite hands, and is willing to, play nice. He's willing to fit in a wide receiver core. He's willing to defer to Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. He's a team guy. And that's that, you'd be looking away from a really tough blocking wide receiver who's a team guy, who's done nothing but produce for you in every imaginable big moment that he's been in the last few years. Heck, you could make a really compelling argument that if it was 4th and 5 and the 49ers had to pick up a first down or their season ended, that Kyle Shanahan would go with Juwan Jennings over OBJ, over Brandon Ayuk, and over Deebo Samuel, and over Danny Gray. I mean, he really would like to have, OBJ over those guys. But I don't know that I would. I think that the difference between OBJ and Juwan Jennings is minuscule. I think OBJ doesn't run the way he used to. He runs better than Juwan, but he doesn't run the way he used to. I think OBJ's got a little bit more proven hands than Juwan, but Juwan's a well above average receiver who runs good routes, plucks the ball with his hands, and is really, really dependable. So, we're going to do a number of these videos every time there's a rumor that has a high price, or not high price, but a highly well-known veteran player is rumored to the 49ers. We're going to touch base, but I'm not going to be the guy that every single time there is a good or above average NFL football player, I'm like, bring him to Santa Clara. You got to have OBJ. I like OBJ. I think he's effective. No chance in hell that you got to have OBJ. I think the better move would be stay with Juwan Jennings, stay with Danny Gray, stay with Tay Martin. Give Tay Martin a legitimate chance in camp to make the roster. Between Tay Martin's, route running ability and Juwan Jennings' size in the red zone, Danny Gray's sub 4.3 speed, they have a really nice receiving core on the back end. And when I watch Beckham do his thing, yeah, it's hard not to like him. You're seeing one-handed catches in the end zone, a guy plucking it out of the air with his huge mitts, and you're thinking, wow, that guy in San Francisco could be special. But then you start to look at it and you're like, well, that's a gamble, and I'd rather take the sure thing. And the sure thing is that Juwan Jennings is cheaper, and he's probably equally effective in the red zone as what Brock Purdy would give you. So I would say, you know what? No. Should the Niners go after OBJ? No, they shouldn't. They should take that money and invest it into their homegrown players like Danny Gray, like Juwan Jennings, and then go spend that money. If you have extra cap room, go spend it on an offensive tackle. Spend it on a replacement for Javon Kinlaw and DJ Jones. Put it on a free safety who can cover the deep middle and just take it away from opponents. Pick somebody that has a little bit more dependability, a little bit more value. So I don't think it's a lock by any means that OBJ comes to the Niners. And I don't think I would show interest. I think I would rather invest in Juwan Jennings and spend that money at the defensive tackle spot or cornerback or wide receiver or tight end. I'd rather, not wide receiver, but tight end. I'd like to see them take a chance on, somebody and fortify their roster in another area instead of just going after the flavor of the month. And that's what I get, the feeling I get with OBJ. He's the flavor of the month. Are there better receivers? Yeah. Are there better receivers with better skills? Yeah. But everybody knows his name. Everybody knows that he's got terrific ball skills. Everybody knows that he's got a Super Bowl ring. I think for the 49ers, instead of looking back at guys like OBJ who won rings, they got to look to who's the next guy coming down the pike, who's the next great thing in the draft. And if it was up to me, if John Lynch calls and he says, Krug, OBJ, he's out there. Do you want him? I'd say, John, 2 words, hard pass. And that's what I think the Niners ought to do. All right, that does it for the Krueg Show, brought to you by Pig in a Pickle. And, of course, our trip to Arizona this week is brought to you by New York-style Italian sausage. And we'll have more Krueg Show videos coming up on the YouTube channel. Check out the channel for all of the latest. And thanks for supporting the Krueg Show.